Hello, I'm Janessa. Welcome to my channel. I'm a health coach and I'm also sharing a bit about my own journey, specifically what it looks like for me to transition off of using compounded semaglutide after a weight loss phase. I have some other videos going into detail about what that's looked like for me. You can watch those videos if you want, but in this video, I'm going to provide a little update because I think it's been a couple weeks since I've connected with you around my goal to maintain my weight as I'm slowly reducing my medication. I also have some secondary fitness goals, so I'm working on strength training. But in full disclosure, what I'm sharing is my process, my journey. May not work for you. This is not advice. And I also know that it can be helpful to see what other people are doing. So I think where I left you last time was walking through just a general idea of my plan for maintenance. And I was alluding in that video to the fact that I might actually start increasing my calories, which is a change that I've made. I think around the time of recording that previous video, I was eating just under or at about 1900 calories. I do track my calories as I've shared. I use Chronometer, so I track my overall calories. I track protein, carbs, fat, fiber. Those are the primary data points for my nutrition that I'm paying attention to. And I'm also tracking my daily weight. And then at the end of the week, I'm taking a daily average of that. So I can look week to week and understand, is my weight staying the same? Is it decreasing? Is it trending up? And the reason why I was thinking about increasing my food the last time I connected with you is because my weight was kind of starting to tick down a little bit. And I'm really trying to stay in this 112 to 114 pound range. I am 5 feet tall. I feel like I have to say that every time I mention my weight because it is important context. I'm a very short woman. That's important to keep in mind, which is also why I feel like being around 1900 calories is actually a really great place for me to be if I'm able to maintain that. And in the last couple of weeks, I've actually been playing with increasing those calories. So in the last couple of weeks, I'll actually just look, I think, because I'm tracking everything in my little notebook just because it's a little easier for me. I just don't want to get into the really nitty-gritty details. I mean, I will tell you, when I was competing in Olympic weightlifting, when I was competing in bodybuilding, I was a data fiend. I had spreadsheets upon spreadsheets, different columns, formulas, all the things, micromanaging everything. And so I think the approach I'm taking now is in some ways a response to that, where I'm just looking to get the core things, the basic things, what's just the essential that I need for information to make more informed decisions about my training, about what I'm eating, how much I'm eating, to manage this whole process as I completely come off my medication of compounded semaglutide. So yeah, I'm looking back a couple weeks ago in my notebook and I'm seeing that, that week it was an average calories every day of 1899. So we can just call it 1900. And my weight was at about 112.9. And it was kind of teetering down a little bit that week. I'm just looking, there were a couple days where I was lower than that. There was even a day where I was below 112. And in this process of coming down off my medication, I hit my goal weight back in February 2025, which was around 114. It was actually more like 114 to 115. And then during this process of coming down off the medication, I've actually been very, very slowly still losing weight. So I don't want that to happen. I want to stay in that sweet spot for me of 112 to 114-ish. And that's important because I'm also strength training a lot more now. So one of my goals is to maintain my lean mass, even regain a tiny little bit if that's possible. I don't know. I'm going to do a DEXA actually next week. A DEXA scan. So I'll know bone density measurements, lean mass measurements, fat measurements, and that'll just be helpful to know as I've been in this process of coming off my medication, focusing on maintenance. Have I actually maintained my lean mass? What does that look like? I have no idea. I honestly have no idea what to expect. In my competitive athletic days, I carried a lot more muscle on my frame, obviously because I'm not training like that or competing like that now. I have no intention of competing ever again. Things just look different for me as far as my body composition because my focus now is health. It's not trying to progress in my sport or especially in bodybuilding, trying to pack on as much muscle as possible. All that being said, that's where I was a couple weeks ago. And then about a week ago, let me go to my notebook here. So I did increase, you're not gonna be able to see it, but I did increase my calories. I was actually up closer to 19 74, so 1,974 calories. I did that very intentionally. I was trying to shoot for around an additional 50 to 75 calories, so I did that. And my weight was up. I went from, what was it, 112.5.9, whatever, in the 112s to 113.5 for my average daily weight for that week. Now, here's the important thing though. I also have been in the latter part of my cycle. I am a woman who still menstruates. And so for me, that's a huge factor in my weight fluctuations day to day and week to week. I often notice that in the second part of my cycle, my weight goes up a pound or two. And then in the first part of my next cycle, it usually just comes right back down. So all that being said, I made the decision to try to maintain my calories. I didn't want to come back down. I didn't want to make any increases. I really just wanted to stay right around that 1950 to 1975 because I knew I'm entering that part of my cycle where I retain a little bit more water, just feel a little hormonal, a little puffy. So this is where the patience comes in, because a prior version of me, of Janessa, could have been freaked out by that, could have said, oh my God, I just increased my calories and all of a sudden I'm up a pound, whatever it was, half a pound, a pound. You know, my mind, because of the many, many years that I have struggled in the past with my weight, with my body image, all the things, like I still have thoughts that are not helpful. The difference is now I've had to learn a lot of tools and skills to help me manage that. And I've also personally found that compounded semaglutide, the way that I describe it, it's almost like it creates more space in my mind so that I can see these thoughts playing out, maybe these reactions, and have a little bit more space, a little bit more separation or detachment from them, and actually go through a process of, like I said, in the last week, just remaining patient, trusting the process. In other words, I've known for a very long time the things I should do, right, to manage myself through this kind of transformation, body change process. But when I was heavier, when I was almost 30 pounds heavier than I am now, my body chemistry was different. My brain chemistry, I think, was different. And it was a lot more challenging to slow down, to take a breath, to do the things that I knew I needed to do for my health, for my longevity, to continue healing my relationship with food, with movement, with my body. And that's one of the biggest benefits that I've personally experienced from compounded semaglutide. I feel like I just have more space internally. So I'll be honest with you, I have had challenging thoughts or negative thoughts come up in the last couple of weeks, some fears around regaining weight. And I've been able to regulate myself. I've been able to remind myself, it's okay. This is why I'm going so slowly with this process. I can't imagine what it would have been like if I, back in February of 2025, went from my higher dose to completely nothing. I'm very fortunate that I had medication on hand so that I could do this very, very slow titration and coming down on the medication, because it's allowed me to deal with some of the body image issues, some of the mental thoughts, the food noise, because I want to be completely transparent with you. As I've been coming down off the medication, especially in the last few weeks, because the other thing, I can't believe I forgot to mention this, I actually am now down to my starting dose. So going back to, I think it was the end of June, the very end of June 2024, that's when I started the medication. So I'm back down to that starting point. And I am noticing food noise coming back. I am noticing just some of the more mental and emotional challenges around food and body image and movement getting a little louder. I've also been noticing a little bit more hunger. And I expected this. I had a feeling that, okay, this medication is definitely taking the edge off of those things. And I knew it was possible that as I began the process of slowly coming off the medication, that those might come back. But again, the difference is I am a different person now than I was over a year ago when I started the medication. I'm in such a better place with my relationship with myself, my body, my health. I have space internally. So I feel like I can manage myself, regulate myself better. And because I've been on the medication for a long time, I've made a lot of other changes in my life. This goes beyond just food and exercise and weight loss for me. I've made so many changes with relationships, with my career, really taking empowered choices that I had a little bit more of a struggle maybe accessing or giving myself credit for when I was overweight and I wasn't feeling good about myself or in my body. And I also started this medication knowing that it's very possible it wouldn't be forever. I really approached this is my window of opportunity, right? This is my window of opportunity while I have access to this. And as soon as I started experiencing benefits, it just reinforced for me, okay, how do I maximize this? How do I get the most out of this? And that's why I really tried my best to make changes all across my life that were positive, that were constructive, that were productive, that I knew would move me in the direction of the type of life that I really wanted. Because before the medication, I was struggling more with my sense of purpose and what I was doing. And that's a story for another day. But my point is that, yes, as I've come off the medication, I had a feeling, okay, the food noise might come back, the hunger might come back. So what are the tools? What are the things that I can do to help myself through that process? And a lot of it comes back to mindfulness, mindful eating. It comes back to slowing down as I eat, really appreciating my food, having gratitude for my food, doing whatever I need to do to enjoy it, to be more present. And then also using strategies, because I am mostly vegan and mostly, whole food, plant-based, really focusing on foods that are going to have more volume, that'll help me with satiety, ensuring that I'm getting enough protein, but also fiber, hydrating well, sleeping well, moving throughout the day, taking little movement breaks so I'm not just at my laptop the entire day. I mean, everything is helpful. And this is in addition to the mindset work, the thought work, the limiting belief work, like working through the negative thoughts as they come up. So the last 2 weeks since I've checked in with you, it's just been a process of really looking at my toolkit of things that I have, noticing when the food noise comes up or have a negative thought or something related to a fear of regaining the weight. And I go, okay, what do I have in my toolkit? What can I do to support myself with this? Because I have been yo-yoing with diet, with weight, since I was in elementary school. Okay, like this has been a lifelong almost process for me. And it's also why I have been so grateful for the benefits that I feel I have experienced from the medication, and why I am so determined to really cement those for myself, because I want this to stick. I want this to be something that I sustain. And I know that short term, there might be some discomfort. There might be some struggles with food noise as that comes back online. But I also know that I'm strong. And this is where the mindset work comes in, reminding myself that I can trust myself, that I can make it through this process, and reaching out for support and help when I need it. So for me, that includes my therapist specifically, someone that I'm connecting with on a regular basis, just to make sure that I have that additional support. And that's why I care so much about my work as a coach and the way that I show up for my clients, because I know the value of having someone in your corner who's going to be able to hold that space with you and help you move through the process in a very empowered way. That's the way that I operate with my clients. That's how I lean on other people. Yes, I ask for help. That's been a practice of mine, getting better at that over many years. And I also bring it back to, okay, at the end of the day, I trust myself. I've got me. What's the most empowered decision I can make in this moment and show up for myself? And ultimately, that's been so helpful, even in the last couple of weeks, as I've had some of these older patterns, I guess you could say, come up for me. And like I said, I decided, just to get back to what I'm actually doing, I did decide to maintain my calories. So I'm just going to go forward to the week I'm at now. So yeah, my weight, even though I'm almost done with my period, my weight is still up in the 113s. So I'm just going to see, I'm just going to stay the course, right? Be consistent in my movement, be consistent in my training, and consistent in the slight increase I made in my calories, and just wait it out. Patience, 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 not being reactive, not allowing myself to just rush into another change because I have some fear coming up. It's going to be okay. So that's really what I'm doing. I'm still training, strength training 3 days a week, doing my morning cardio, which I love, getting outside with Sadie, going on walks, focusing on eating my vegan diet and also whole foods. And yeah, I do have some processed foods in there, some fun foods, just to keep things a little interesting. That's the way that I like to do it. That's the way that works for me. And I have been incorporating going out. I think in the last couple of weeks, I've been out to eat twice. And, I had to prepare myself mentally for that. I knew, okay, if I go from tracking my food all at home to eating a meal out, there's probably going to be some additional calories. There's definitely going to be additional sodium. And yeah, the next day or two, my weight's up, but then it comes back down. So patience, patience, patience. That's really my focus right now, in case you can't tell, because I would like to see what happens in the next couple of weeks, since I'll be in the first part of my next cycle, see where my weight lands. And I think probably what I'll do is, if my weight drops back down, I will most likely make another food increase, because again, I want to be up closer to that 114 where I was back in February. So I have some room there. If my weight drops back down into the 112s, just making these very small incremental changes. If my weight doesn't drop back down, if I'm kind of hanging out in that 113 to 114, then I'll probably maintain my calories and just once again, see what happens when my next period comes. And ultimately, as I've shared, my goal is to get to more of that like 2,000 calories. Like, I'd love to be at 2,000 calories a day or just above, because for me as a 5 foot tall woman, I feel pretty confident that I will be very nourished at that level. I feel very nourished now, but the reason why I like to have a little extra room is because going into the holidays, it's nice. It's nice to have my caloric capacity a bit higher, because it just makes it a little easier to do some adjustments on the days when, for example, I have a holiday meal with family. I also have some travel planned. So there's always a little bit more variability that comes up with travel, and having that extra room to work with is so helpful. That's so different than if I had really bottomed out my calories as part of the compounded semaglutide. I wasn't tracking my calories when I was on a higher dose, but if I had to guess, which I have a pretty good idea because I've tracked for a long time, on and off for many, many years, I have a pretty good idea of like how many calories are in certain foods. And my guess is that at my lowest calories on the medication, I was around 1,700 calories, maybe in the 1,600s, which is not a crash diet. It is definitely lower. I mean, it was enough for me to very consistently lose about a pound, sometimes down to a half a pound every week when I was really experiencing the most of my weight loss. But that is not bottoming out by any means for a 5 foot tall woman, in my opinion. I mean, when I was doing my bodybuilding competition, at one point I was definitely lower than that, and having a much higher expenditure as far as my activity and my output. So all that being said, I think what has really, really helped me in this process of coming down off the medication is I did not ratchet that medication up. My provider did not encourage me to ratchet that medication up. My highest dose of the medication was maybe about half of where we could have gone in theory. So we only went up to a truly therapeutic dose for me, paid attention to my body, to the trends of my weight over time. And that was really helpful because I'm not coming off of a really sky high dose. I don't know what that would be like, but I think it's fair to say that that could be more challenging. And because I was not at a sky high dose, I was just at a therapeutic dose. For me, I was still experiencing hunger, even at my highest dose. It didn't eliminate my appetite or eliminate my hunger. It just reduced it, and most importantly, reduced the food noise. So I felt like I could make a lot more empowered decisions around food and movement, etc. So really, this is related to a lot of the things I learned about in my bodybuilding journey. I'm essentially doing a reverse diet, a very slow reverse diet. And I think that naturally, before I was tracking consistently, I was just steadily increasing my food from probably that 1650, 1700, somewhere in there. That got up to the 1800s. And it was when my calories were in the mid 1800s. That's what I really saw as my baseline when I started tracking consistently in August. So now it's just been this slow process, right, of continuing to come up, to make empowered decisions, because I'm coaching myself. So it's very different than working with someone who's telling me what to do. I'm making those decisions for myself. And that's another important part of how I approach my work with my clients, because I don't tell my clients what to do. I am very much focused on helping my clients get in touch with what they feel is the best for them, trusting themselves. And of course, if they're using a weight loss medication, that's in the realm of their relationship with their prescriber, with their provider. That's not my lane. I don't do that kind of work with people at all. But what I can do is help them more with the behavioral change part of it, because that's what I'm passionate about. And that's what I'm going through myself here, and wanting to be, very honest and transparent about what that looks like for me too. So I think that's it. I think that's a bit of an update of where I'm at, what I've been up to. I'm curious to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. Really, it's just being patient, not overreacting, seeing myself through this process, reminding myself that at the end of the day, I can trust myself and it's going to be okay. I feel really great about the fact that I'm down to my starting dose. It gives me so much more confidence to know that I still have enough medication where I can cruise at this starting dose for a little longer. And then I'll probably make another jump down to about half of what my starting dose is. And then at some point after that, come off entirely. So thank you so much for connecting. I really appreciate you coming along with me on this journey. And I look forward to connecting soon.